Hey, Katie Kimball here for the Healthy Parenting Connector and Kids Cook Real Food. I've got Sam Shay with us today, and we are going to talk about the importance of the foundation of the family. And what is that? It's usually the mama. It's usually the parent, but particularly the heart of the home, the mom, and how important it is to have that strong foundation. So thank you so much for being here, Sam, for this important topic.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, the topic's very important to me. My parents had my background to how I got into natural medicine is a bit long and circuitous, but the short version actually started with the kind of nuclear divorce that happened between my mother and father when I was 6 years old, and me and my three sisters were in the blast radius of that
Ooh.
divorce, and it wasn't really handled well on anyone's part by their admission, and um, I'm wanting to chat with you and your audience about the importance of mom's self-care, because as a child growing up with a mompreneur who didn't take care of herself, she made decisions that were not in the best interest, not only for herself, but especially her children. And she and I, just to kind of fast forward 30 plus years, she and I are real excellent, we have an excellent relationship now. We're extremely close. Like, we talk on the phone. It's a very loving, caring relationship. It wasn't always like that,
Mm.
to put it mildly. And uh, a lot of the reasons for that, I feel, a lot of the contributions to that, I would say, is that she didn't do a lot of self-care, and she was in a lot of physical pain, back pain, that she just tried to numb out with painkillers. She would eat candy for lunch. She had terrible sleeping problems and would just try to soldier and stubborn herself through it.
Mm.
Not a lot of self-care practices, except things like sugar. And um, in general, she was very, very stressed out. Look, my father was, he paid child support, and he had his own issues. And I've given other podcasts on the situations with him, and as it relates to, I mean, ironically, he wrote 2 books on PTSD. It's kind of a world expert on moral injury and PTSD, and the irony is many layers thick on that.
Boy.
And he was basically arm's length absentee, and through child support at the problem, because he's just kind of done with raising kids. I was the fourth, and he was just kind of over it. And uh, that's a whole separate story, because we're focusing today on moms. And my the older I get, the more I can understand my mother's decision tree. I don't agree with the fork she took, but I can understand it, feeling overwhelmed, frustrated. In her eyes, unsupported, though technically and legally she was, according to the divorce agreement, and wanting to just feeling utterly just overwhelmed, and picking the short, comfortable, easy strategies to just kind of buy another day, buy another week, buy another month
Mm.
for coping. And there was definitely fallout from those decisions, not the least of with a tremendous amount of friction and stress between her and her son, and to other degrees with her other children.
Mm.
And I'm sharing this with your audience, not to one, the women listening to this who aren't divorced, to kind of gloat that they're fine. That's obviously not what I'm talking about. Nor is it to uh, make divorced moms feel bad. It's not like that at all. It's to give a perception, as a grown child of a really bad divorce, of a mom who chose, as part of her coping strategy, and I say that deliberately, coping strategy, part of her coping strategy had a lot of knock-on effects on her health as well as her relationships with her children, that I don't think were worth the cost, the short term, the supposed short term gain had a vastly larger long term cost. So that's one reason It's one reason why, I want to talk about self-care for mom.
Yeah, I mean, you've
Yes.
definitely got the background, the personal history, and that's clearly your why. I know that part of your journey is a lot of physical issues, insomnia, anxiety, depression, and video game and sugar addiction, and that's a lot to have happen throughout your life. And really starting with that genesis of not feeling like you had your mom there for you. And then the reason that you're going to teach us the flip side, right? The reason you
Of
can tell
course.
us how to do the self care and the taking care of oneself is that you're super trained in a ton of areas: doctorate in chiropractic, acupuncture, functional neurology, genetics analysis, and functional medicine. So you took all of that pain of your childhood and young adulthood and said, I got to figure out the fix.
Yeah, that's I knew I was going to be a doctor when I was age 6. Both my
Aw.
parents were doctors, and so is my grandfather, but I didn't realize I'd take a sharp turn into natural medicine.
Hmm.
Um, because I was so stressed out, and there's so many things that were happening, the bullying and violence at school, as you said, sugar addiction, video game addiction, terrible, terrible diet. I was put on a
Hmm.
low fat, high carb diet at age 7 because they tested my cholesterol at age 7 and thought it was too high at
Oh
age
no.
7. So it was boxed cereals, junk food, just sugar. It was not good. And I cross trained across multiple disciplines because I had to dig out of my own hole.
Hmm.
And in part of that process, as is with common with so many natural healthcare practitioners, they arrive to where they're at because they had to go through their own healer's journey.
So true.
And the particular constellation of pieces to put together is, it's my constellation. It's a framework. There's lots of frameworks out there, and the framework that came out of studying all the other frameworks I could find, and then figuring out what were the gaps in each of them.
Hmm.
And my when I share the framework, I just want to kind of put a couple, plant a few flags in the ground. There are many different ways to assess the human body.
Hmm.
Ultimately, they all circle back to the few most common things when you analyze all the different systems. And there's a couple things that when we first describe, because I'm going to talk about the 10 pillars of health.
Okay.
Now, 10 may sound like a lot, particularly if when you're a busy parent. And the flag I'm putting in the ground is you don't have to do all 10 at once. It's just know what the 10 are, and then you can prioritize.
Hmm.
And not only but can you prioritize and make it simple and straightforward to just focus on the most important things, but everything you ever learn from this point on into whatever you have learned and will learn in natural medicine, you can now slot into each of these 10 pillars, so that everything you've ever learned can be salvaged and stored and sorted accordingly. Because the danger that what happens is that we're so inundated with the shiniest new nootropic or supplement or coconut oil extract or goji berry juice you squirt up your nose or whatever. It's that everything seems equally important and equally prioritized and equally urgent, and that is simply not true. It's
Hmm.
just simply not true. Certain things are important for certain people at certain times of their life, and then not. And by giving the 30,000-foot view of the 10 pillars of health, it will just organize one's
Hmm.
thinking and de-radicalize. Because there's people who get so radicalized in natural health. Oh, it's all about meditation. No, it's all about some special breathing technique. No, it's all about half drowning myself in an ice bath. No, it's all about the other better form of goji berry juice. I insert up the other nostril because that's better. It's all these different health rages and fads and all the rest of it. They what I call magic bullet therapy.
Hmm.
Magic bullet therapy is chasing after magic bullet. It is actually the application of Western medicine philosophy using a natural intervention.
That we just
So,
want to take a pill to fix it in the
oh,
natural way.
Correct. We want the natural version of a pill. And that is philosophically Western medicine. Now, Western medicine was born out of military medicine, emergency care, where we don't have bleeding eye syndrome or missing arm disease on the battlefield. Those are emergencies that need stabilization.
Right.
So the problem is when you globalize any situation into a catastrophe, or it's not a catastrophe, so quit whining. So it's very black and white thinking. So we've taken a Western medicine philosophy into non-emergency situations. My skill set in natural medicine has no value in the emergency room. Okay. And the emergency room techniques don't really have value in optimal well-being, living, and dealing with chronic issues.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't want to be treated like I'm in the emergency room every day of my life. That's the
exactly.
whole problem, is that we feel like life's an emergency, but we need to treat it from that 30,000-foot view.
Exactly. So I'm putting that flag in the ground that Western medicine is not the enemy. It's contextual, just like natural medicine. It's just a different context. And I really want to make sure that this doesn't come across as anti-Western medicine. It's situational. And both my parents, again, medical doctors. They're not bad, evil people. They just have skill sets that are in a totally different realm than what I do. That's all. So it's and when we talk about these 10 pillars, I want to frame in terms of investment. It's not a cost. It's not a depletion, because it's a long-term investment, because I am living proof of what happens when mom doesn't put in that doesn't have to be much time, doesn't put in the investment, because the knock-on effects can affect oneself and one's children and one's relationship to one's children for decades to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to share now we'll get into kind of the nitty-gritty of the 10 pillars. And so what I'm showing, so for those that are just listening, I'll be describing what I see, what's on the screen here. But if you want a copy of my ebook on the 10 pillars of health called Biohack Your Biohacking, you can just text biohacker to 44333. That's biohacker, all one word, BIOHACKER, to 33344. Or you can go to my website, drsamshay.com/biohacker, and you can get a copy of this ebook. So the 10 pillars of health model I developed working with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and autoimmune patients when I was living in New Zealand. And what I found, the reason why it's 10 pillars is because 10 is kind of the largest number that most people can wrap their head around. I had one colleague who had 37, and I was like, good luck teaching that. Good luck. Ouch. Good luck with that. So 10 is a number that maybe you can go to 12 culturally, maybe, but 10 is a good place to stop. So what I found is that people who struggled, whether they were aspirational biohacker, mompreneurs, entrepreneurs, or they were chronically unwell, or they were just feeling normal and wanting to like cope and just carry on, the 10 pillars applied. And the 10 pillars were clinically vetted, because what I found is that those that were chronically unwell had a minimum 7 out of 10 pillars crumbling, which explained why they were chronically unwell. Because most clinicians, protocols, products, programs, whatever, if they're honest, are usually really good at 1 to 3 pillars, sort of maybe touch on another 3 and totally neglect the other 4, whatever the combinations are. Mm-hmm. And I know that may sound a bit harsh, but it's kind of true. And that's just the reality of it. And if you're sitting on 7 tacks and you remove 3 of them, you're technically healthier, but do you feel that much better?
Still really hurts. Yeah. I love that you made them all B's as well.
Yeah. Thank you for spotting that. I'm a bit of a nerd like that. I'm a alliterative nerd, and I'm a frameworker. My side gig is I'm a frameworker. So I love taking other people's content from whatever field they're in and creating their frameworks that can go publish their products, their books, or programs. Cool. So this is my pet, one of my pet frameworks. The first pillar is brain, which stands for brain and hormones. So adrenals, thyroid, sex hormones. Usually it's either an imbalanced sex hormones or it's xenoestrogen toxicity. And then there's brain imbalance. There's a whole universe of functional neurology out there in terms of how your brain is integrated within parts of itself related to other sides of itself. Second pillar is bowel and digestion. How well you chew, how well you poo, how well you digest. People put lots of expensive supplements into their body, and yet if they can't absorb them, they're kind of wasting their money. If you're really feeling macabre, you could go onto Google Images and type in Centrum in my poop or something like that, and you'll see the Centrum supplement. We'll call them, to be charitable, call them a supplement. The Centrum multivitamin, again charitable, calling it a multivitamin. You can see people taking pictures of their poop with the Centrum pill in it with the word Centrum still written on it.
It's not digested at all. Oh,
yeah, well, it's hard to digest something compressed at 5,000 psi. Anyway, bowel and digestion. Now, I got into this game from severe constipation. I had it for 12 years. I couldn't go every 3 to 5 days from age 6 to 18.
Holy cow.
So that is absolutely. Now, if people are fast on their feet, you'll notice the second pillar, number 2, is bowel, as my sense of humor, number 2's. And that's really, really important, because if you can't evacuate, then it's like you're living in a house with a toilet that can't flush and you become autotoxic. People won't, you have to be able to eliminate. The third pillar is body, which is untreated injuries, poor posture, spinal misalignments, bad dental work, and genetics. Why is genetics in body? Because look at twins. Twins have the same bodies because of their genetics. So body is all things physical: acute injuries, chronic injuries, poor posture. Like I said, bad dental work will ruin your life. If anyone who knows this, anyone who doesn't know this, you're lucky. I have a large subspecialization in genetics. One of a few people here in the States that are trained in a specific methodology called Fit Genes. In fact, I'm working on my next ebook, which should be ready next week, actually, on genetics, called You're Missing Genes. So the genetics is in there. And then fourth pillar is burst, which stands for burst exercise or movement. Now, movement, exercise can be a dirty word to people, particularly very busy parents. There's a lot of guilt associated with it. Or there's a lot of bragging. It's one of the two.
That's so true. Oh, goodness. Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. I mean, I live in, I'm in Boulder, and it's quite an experience to have a 75-year-old shoot past you uphill on a 14er with a weight pack on. So just saying, that's humbling to see that happen.
That's impressive. So
movement,
2, 3, and 4, for those who can't see, are all part of the physical, right? The bowel,
correct.
The gut, the body, posture, genetics, burst meaning movement. That's all our bodies. Brain's right in the middle. Does that mean it's most important?
It means that everything converges. So if you look at the hypothalamus, which is arguably the center of the brain, it interprets data from the physical, chemical, and emotional parts of our input systems, and it makes a decision. It's a boardroom. Are we under threat or not? And so all input feeds into the brain. All pillars are equal, but not all pillars are equal to everybody, to kind of butcher a George Orwell quote. It's because some pillars are more crumbling than others, and some pillars have a higher priority than others. And some pillars can be sledgehammered. 4 of these 10 pillars can be sledgehammered. One is the body, from a either literal sledgehammer or a car accident or sports injury or on the wrong end of violence. So that's that pillar can be sledgehammered. The other pillar that can be sledgehammered is pillar number 5, which is biotoxins. If you get an acute enough exposure of something, we're dealing with fires right now. I'm looking at, it looks like there may be snow outside. No, that's ash. I'm looking at ash right now falling in Boulder because of the fires just north of Boulder.
Oh, goodness.
As we're recording this. So toxins can be a sledgehammer. They can also be a ball peen hammer, just slowly chipping away. And toxins, unfortunately, is the pillar that is the most worrisome long term, because it's only going to get much worse before it gets any better, given the whatever thousands of chemicals that are quote unquote approved every
Yeah.
year, and manufacturing, and then all sorts of toxins in food, water, air, off gassing, and so forth. Um, I will say this for your listeners: please do not run to go do a detox. Don't go do a detox, okay? Because if you detox without these other pillars in place and your system's ready to handle it, you could hurt yourself. I've hurt myself detoxing too quickly because my body wasn't able to handle it.
Mm.
The best thing you can do is shore up the other pillars first and remove exposure
Right.
to the toxin, as opposed to dive into some off-the-shelf detox. And you want to do detox under supervision. And of course, like what you teach, eat real food before you start pushing those detox pathways. Pillar number 6 is bionutrients. We're in the biochemical slice of the pie here. This is pillars 5, 6, and 7. So bionutrients is the reverse of biotoxins. So what you need to eat and take into your body, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, but sunlight and oxygen is also metabolized in the body. So those are a bionutrient as well. In fact, I'm in my genetics ebook. Right before this, I was working on the description of the vitamin D pathway. There's 11 major genes that are on the pathway to, 8 of them are to help you put vitamin D stably in your blood, but there's another 3 that can you actually use it for the receptor sites of the cell. So getting vitamin D into the blood is half the journey.
Wow.
And people stop there and they don't realize there's another half of the vitamin D receptors to actually get the vitamin D into the cells. And that's a whole separate universe that most people miss.
We are
And
complex beings, aren't we? Wow.
a little, it's a smidge, yeah, no kidding. And just to further make it like vitamin D controls roughly 3 to 5% of your genome. Like that activates over 1,000 genes, and every single cell in the body, with the exception of dead skin cells and red blood cells, has vitamin D receptors on it. So it's important. Vitamin D, super duper important. And we know this right now. Vitamin D is getting a lot of earned respect at the moment, because what was the statistic? 98% of people who ended up on ventilators were vitamin D deficient. I think that was Rhonda Patrick's statistic. So that's bionutrients, and that's nutrition. Now, nutrition is one of these things that everyone just goes magic bullet-y crazy on, to the exclusion of all the other pillars. Now, I've taught nutrition for a long time, and I'm the first to say nutrition is super important. I'm also de-emphasizing the fanaticism around it. I know it's a bit ironic talking to you on a show that emphasizes food, but my job is to round out the picture for everyone. So, and I have like a perfect paleo version of a Portlandia diet. So like I'm really big into food. So, but people can really get lost here. They can get really, really lost to the exclusion of the other pillars. And the 7th pillar, breakfast, it's not just about eating breakfast. It's about routines and habits. That I found that the people who had really just look at night shift nurses. That's not a job I'd curse on anybody. I mean, they are as a class of professionals, they are by far the most unwell group of people I have ever worked with in my life. Are night shift nurses. Okay, because they have all 10 pillars in spades, but the worst of it is their routines are completely thrown off the deep end because of this horrid, schedule shift work and all the rest of it. So breakfast. Now, I know some of you think, well, what about intermittent fasting? Shouldn't I skip breakfast? And my answer is no, skip dinner or lunch, because you should have breakfast to help control your adrenal response. If you skip breakfast, your cortisol levels will go up, your stress levels will go up, and up. That's why it's called break the fast, because your body makes cortisol to make sure your brain has enough fuel to, stay alive when you sleep. And if you don't eat, cortisol will keep going up to break down tissue in order to provide fuel for your brain. So don't skip breakfast. And I'm sorry to say, most people who are recommending skip breakfast are 20s to 40s financially solvent tech entrepreneur males, not moms,
Uh,
right?
I do. I
So
mean, I hear intermittent fasting is recommended
yeah,
for women. I know a lot of mom have trouble finding breakfast, but you would say, mom, eat breakfast with your kids within, I'm going to guess, within an hour of waking.
ideally.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
get so busy that you're on your fourth reheat of the coffee and you haven't had anything to eat and it's 11 or it's noon or whatever. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I'd say because of the family situations, skipping dinner can be challenging because
Mm-hmm.
it's a family time, and so can breakfast. So if people want to do intermittent fasting, once or twice a week, obviously, asterisk, asterisk, disclaimer, disclaimer, under supervision, get checked by your clinician, blah, blah, blah. Skip lunch.
Huh.
Or if you're going to skip a dinner, the easier way to do it, if you particularly have young kids and they go to bed early, you can eat breakfast, you can eat lunch, but have a really early dinner, like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that way, if your breakfast is, say, at 7, you've had a 14-hour fast reliably as many days as you want, and you still have 3 full meals a day. So that's the easy way to get over a 12-hour fast and
Yep.
still have family meals and all the rest of it. Obviously, as kids get older and dinners get later, just juggle and just aim for just once a week. It doesn't have to be every day. It's just make it winnable. Don't
Hmm.
the biggest problem I find with talking about natural health, the biggest barrier is mommy guilt. That
Hmm.
is the single biggest barrier is overwhelm and mommy guilt and my kid before me, or I'm just trying to rush through and survive. And the 10 pillars is not meant to overwhelm. It's just to help you prioritize. If you
Because each of
prioritize
us
and
need, yeah, each of us has some needs in some of these pillars that are, greater than the rest. And then you're saying, this whole idea of like a self-sacrificing mother is maybe good in storybooks, but not in your kitchen and in your sleep and in these 10 pillars.
yeah, I wouldn't rely on Disney for how to model motherhood. They usually get killed off within the first 5 minutes.
Yes, true.
I mean, Bambi was a great mom, and then she was venison. Like just. And by the way, there is actually a story behind that. The history of Walt. If you look up the history of Walt Disney, it's actually quite tragic. He unfortunately inadvertently killed his parents because he bought them a house, but there was a gas leak in the house, and they asphyxiated.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, but it explains a lot of the Disney films. Like truly, like this is a known phenomenon. Look, why are there no moms in Disney? There's articles on this. It is mortifying and fascinating at the same time. Not to be too macabre, well, because easy transition into bothers or stressors. So that was a easy
Yeah.
transition. We're in the mental emotional side of the pie here. So it's bothers, bugs, and bedtime are the last 3 pillars. Bothers is a B word for stress.
Mm-hmm.
So all forms of stress, Disney movies aside, it's I talk about the marital stress between my mother and father, family stress. There's financial stress. There can be cultural stress if you've moved to one culture to another, or there's like I've lived in different countries. I've lived in different states. There's differences. There
Mm-hmm.
just are. And acclimating to a new culture can be difficult. Clutter is a form of stress. Electromagnetic fields for certain people are experienced as very stressful. I'm electromagnetically sensitive, and it's problematic. But not everyone is sensitive. So some
Mm-hmm.
people is like, "What are you complaining about? You're making this up." It's like, well, I'm not. But just because you don't feel it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Sure.
Um, so bothers is another one that can be a sledgehammer.
Mm-hmm.
So the body, the physical sledgehammer. There's the biochemical sledgehammer of toxins. Bothers is another sledgehammer. You know, I I had a friend of mine whose father's house burned down. Like this is real. Like this happened this week. Like a sickness of a child, the death of a family member, the loss of a job, a divorce, a move, some other catastrophic bad news, or whatever.
Yeah.
That can be a sledgehammer. And
It
of
can really
course,
throw you into disease
correct.
from stress. Yeah, definitely. And then bugs. We're not talking mosquitoes, I'm guessing.
And only what they transmit if you're in the tropics. So bugs has to do with hidden infections and mold.
Mm.
So I lived and practiced in New Zealand for a number of years, and that's mold central. We're surrounded by water on all sides, shoddy construction, and mold, lots and lots of mold. And mold, I mean, on my 10 pillars of health survey, when I work with people individually, about 10 or 12 questions within that bug section alone is just devoted to mold, notwithstanding the other things that people can pick up hidden infections like sushi, swimming in lakes, anywhere you can pick up a hidden infection is really, it can really affect you in kind of seen and unseen ways. And I'm not talking about the Western versions of infections, like Western medicine, like where you have jetting, liquid out of all ends. I'm talking about like the chronic gnawing, like gut, like where you run these advanced gut tests. Like if you, I mean, in my practice, I do functional testing. We check gut tests all the time. And we even in Western worlds, like there's lots of hidden infections, lots and lots. Like it's not just if you go traveling to some third world country. And the reason why those are important is because hidden infections, they gnaw on your organs, they poop, they create they can shed molecular mimicry, or they themselves can create molecular mimicry and trigger an autoimmune reaction. So like in Hashimoto's, there's four known infections that can trigger an immune response, and as collateral damage can attack the thyroid: Proteus, blastocystis, Yersinia, and I can't remember. I can't remember. Whatever, some great Scrabble word. I can't remember the
Yep,
name of
I
the other
bet.
one. Gluten is another one that actually can mimic thyroid tissue in terms of an immune response. So that's bugs. And this 10th pillar is sleep. Consistency, duration, quality, depth. I was a severe insomniac from age 6 to 18, to the point where it stunted my growth. And based on my father's height, shoe size, hand size, and so on, I should be 4 inches taller based on all these other metrics, and I'm not, because the highest amount of growth hormones released between 10 and 12 at night, and that wasn't happening for me during the periods of highest growth for me. So those are the 10 pillars, and that's the big overview. Again, it's how can we understand all the different facets of natural health, and how they're all on par with each other. Not one is not more important than the other. Some can be sledgehammered. The body can be sledgehammered. Biotoxins can be sledgehammered. Bothers can be sledgehammered, and bugs can be a sledgehammer. A wicked infection, as we're seeing right now in current plague times, can be a sledgehammer.
And some of those are going to be, they're going to be the black and the white. Like either you have that problem, either you have a co-infection or toxin overload, or you don't. But everyone needs to think about sleep, the bedtime, and bowel, and keeping things moving, and burst, keeping your body moving, right? So it's just kind of, each of us needs to figure out where on the wheel is the top priority for us. And then your top priority today, though, is just to really give moms that message. Like, you can't do it all, but you need to do some, and you need to do some for you, so that you can serve your kids, so that you can be the mom you want to be, and raise kids who, feel well balanced and feel loved, and have all of their 10 pillars of health slotted in and taken care of. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and most of my practice are moms, and that's me. If you want to call it, for lack of a better term, ending the karma of what I grew up with, or just I have an affinity to helping out moms because I know what it's like to be in the blast radius of a mom who is unwell, and whatever. And I know if I can help mom, I can help the whole family. It's like what is the most important, who are the most important people that I feel I can help uniquely from my own, not just from a skill set point of view, but because I have a deep drive to help the very people that I have a meaningful experience with, and if they were as helped, if I could have helped my mom, the way I help mothers now, I would have done anything to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I always love, we have like 2 minutes. I love, Dr. Shay, to leave my audience, these busy mamas who love their kids and just desperately want to raise them to be healthy. I love the practical, right? So this was amazing, all bees philosophy. But if you could choose one of your pillars that would apply to everyone and give like one practical step that a mom can do before the end of today to help herself be a better foundation for her family, what would it be?
So I've had versions of this question before. If I were to pick the most highest priority pillar, it volleys, but it's situational, but it volleys between bedtime bothers, breakfast, and bowel.
Mm.
So if someone is wickedly constipated, and by I mean if you don't go, if you have to go at least once a day, at least 12 inches worth of poop. If you're constipated, that's worth looking at. If you're skipping breakfast, if you are having a sugar breakfast,
Mm.
or you're having, glorified carbs, and you're just, or whatever it is, then that's your priority. If your sleep has been sacrificed, you have to take it off the altar of parenthood. Find
Mm.
something else to sacrifice on the altar of parenthood. And if your life is extremely stressful, then that's the priority. This is why I can't give like here. But
Yeah.
I can give the top four that I see are the usually most urgent. Obviously, if you were just recently had a major sports accident or whatever, that's like aside from the
Yeah.
obvious ones, those are the four that to look at. Now, you can read more about it on my blog. You can text biohacker to 44333 and you can get the ebook, and there's all sorts of detail. And like, this is just like one slide we've been hanging out on
Yep.
out of roughly 80 or so. So I think, yeah, that's my answer. Those four, pick between
Mm-hmm.
those four.
No, it's good. I mean, I think that's very fair just to say these are the big ones, and
Mm-hmm.
you probably each mama out there nodded her head a little more strongly on one or two of those.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are a little bit easier and quicker to fix, like breakfast, just nailing that in.
Yeah.
Some like bothers, aka stress,
Yeah.
massive, right? So part of figuring out the practical is what's most important, and man, what can you like actually make progress on in a week, because progress is really motivating. And then, okay, I've actually like dialed in breakfast. I feel good about my,
Yeah.
protein and fat and complex carbs. I'm getting them all in and I'm actually eating. Okay, now I can look at something that's maybe a little bit of a bigger construction project, so to speak. So I appreciate it, Sam. It's really interesting to see these 10 pillars. And of course, we always want to reduce the overwhelm. So think about one, busy mamas out there. And I know
Yeah.
Dr. Sam, Shay, and I would both tell you that you are the heart of your home, and
Definitely.
your kids' health is so dependent upon your health, body, mind, spirit, etc. So really appreciate this encouragement. I think we all need to just hear it over and over and over, that our health is the foundation of our kids' health. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, Katie.
Awesome. Everyone, I will see you next time on the Healthy Parenting Connector.